What's up, Homegrown Filmmakers? It's Annie here with another vlog, and we'll be talking with that guy about props.
I'm Phillip, and I'm the maker. Normally I get assigned to the role of art director, and that encompasses a whole bunch of other stuff, but my primary passion is just building stuff and making stuff for the films that we make. My job starts once the script has been written, and I look over it and I go, okay, so here's this stuff that we don't have that you can't buy anywhere. How would I go about making this? The first thing that I started with for Save Lives Apologize was Brad's ray gun. For this, I knew there are a few places out there that make like custom ray gun props that I've seen, but they're really expensive, and I'm like, I don't need to do that, I can make this. So just a few months ago, Dad and I, we built a 3D printer to be able to make plastic parts from CAD models and computer generated 3D models. And so I went to work doing a bunch of research for what I wanted the ray gun to look like, you know, what other people had done for their ray guns. And also I wanted to get a feel for the period, you know, we were going for the mid-1930s sci-fi serials like Flash Gordon and the Rocket Man and that kind of stuff. And so I looked up a bunch of research images, and then I made the 3D model for this. This is in 5 pieces for ease of printing. I have kind of a small printer, it doesn't print very big. This is in, the grip is in 2 pieces and half. You can't see because it's all glued and painted, but you know, there's a half this way, half this way. These ridges are separate from the barrel piece, and there's 2 halves to those. I had to do it that way just because of the way the printer works, but there it is. So this is my 3D printer, and it is basically a hot glue gun on a robot. It's a robot hot glue gun. Basically how this works is I've got 3 motors. 3 motors there. Each of these 3 motors controls a belt that controls the vertical position of one of these sliders. And these 3 sliders, moving in concert, can move the head around. Now it'll come down to the plate, and it does it in layers. And then this motor here controls the flow rate of the material. As you can see, I've turned it on so that the end is getting hot, so I can actually just push a bead of plastic out of the hot end. And there you go. I have spools of plastic like this. This particular plastic is ABS, which is a pretty common plastic. Most plastic things you find are made out of this. This printer can print in a variety of materials. I've got this is another plastic called PLA. Prints at a lower temperature. You know, you can pick your material based on color, what kinds of properties different materials have, different advantages and disadvantages based on what you're printing. Most of the parts that I printed for these projects were in ABS. Here is the digital model for the ray gun. And each of these pieces gets printed separately just because of the way that they're shaped, and the way that they get printed is like this. There it is. I wanted to print out the barrel vertically like this, because like I said, the printer prints in layers, so if I print it like this, you've got all of these pieces here that are like hanging up in the air. The printer does not do well with that. What this program then does is it takes the object, however you set it up on the plate level, and converts it to a series of flat pictures of layers. These are the actual tool paths for printing that out. So like, there's the bottom layer. It'll print out this is some support material, but like there's the tip of the base there, just what's touching the bed, and basically so on all the way up till it gets to the flare at the top.
So that's as if we were looking down the barrel of the gun.
Yeah, this program is called Slicer, and basically that's what it does. We're looking at a series of slices, each one a quarter of a millimeter higher up in the model than the last. So what this program does is it takes this, compiles it into a format that the printer can read, then I send it to the printer, and then the head will print out the bottom, move up just a little bit, print out the next layer, move up just a little bit, print out the next layer, move up, you know, so on and so till it's printed the whole model. This was like a little tape dispenser model that I found somewhere. And like you can see where the edge curls away, you can start to see the individual layers. You can still see the outlines of them, especially on these really like almost flat surfaces. Still get the ridges. So I didn't smooth it out all the way. I liked the kind of the ridgy look of it. Just to show you the printer kind of in motion here. So it can do a circle maybe about 6.5 inches in diameter, and it's a foot tall worth of print volume. So that's about the biggest object that I could print. And then, you know, coat of paint, a little bit of paint on the details, and there you go. Awesome ray gun. For the jetpack, I had some basic ideas going in. I had looked at a bunch of research and images from jetpacks that were in movies from the time period that we were sort of aiming to emulate. So I knew that I was just going to be making it out of like a series of tubes. When you go to tubes, the sort of the really staple material, the best material to work with is, again, ABS pipe, sewage pipe. So it's the same kind of plastic as I'm printing, but it's in a pipe. And I already had a bunch of, like, I had some 3-inch and 4-inch diameter pipes just laying around. I have so much stuff just laying around. So I actually started, again, in Blender, which is my 3D modeling software, free open source 3D modeling software. I just started with, okay, I've got some bits of 3-inch tubing, got some bits of 4-inch tubing, and I started playing around with arrangements and how I wanted it to be. What came out of this was I built the 3D model for the exhaust nozzles and the 3D model for these end cap pieces. Sort of the way that I was going to blend these sides into the center. I can take these objects, send them to the printer, and they'll print them out, and since I got all of the dimensions for the pipes correct in the Blender file, these pieces will be exactly the right size when they're real and physical. So here is the finished jetpack. As you can see, it's just 2 smaller tubes stuck on a bigger tube. The 3D printed and nozzle caps. Again, I didn't spend a whole lot of time blending out the layers, so you can still kind of see them. But I didn't find that a huge issue. All glued in and sanded in. It turned out pretty good. For this centerpiece, no, on the 3D model, I didn't really bother with caps for that one because I had figured out a different way to do it. I was looking at it going, I don't want to print this part. I want to be able to like mold it a little differently. I was trying like hot sand bending, which is where you basically you cook up a pot of hot sand, you can dip plastics in it to heat them up, and then they become pliable. That didn't work very well, as you can see. I just ended up embedding hot sand into the plastic and making a mess of it. So what I did was I took another section of the pipe. You can see like that's a slice of a big piece of pipe. I cut it in half this way and then stuck it on the end like that. So I had to, you know, shape the end of this into a round bit so that that would fit on there. And there was a lot of blending to do. There's still a little bit of a seam right there. Top and bottom caps for that. These pieces here. And here. You see one of the 3D printed nozzles with just a screw jammed through it to hold it in. And again, this is a pretty straightforward print. Layers like that. For this one, since it's such a tall model, I had increased the layer height so that there's less layers so that it prints faster. Still, this is like maybe an hour and a half long print or more. So there's like a few issues with some of these overhangs, just the way the print didn't come out nice. What you can do with ABS though, since it's dissolves in acetone, as you can take ABS parts, just like dunk them in acetone, and then the acetone melts just the outside surface of it, and then it forms a smooth skin, which is why this is a lot smoother than a raw 3D printed part. Like here, this is a sanding block that we printed, and you know, it's like you can hear the ridges on it. Whereas this, nothing. Oh, there's like a little circle of wood in there. That's the diameter, the inside diameter of the pipe. You can just put it in. Once I gotten that down, you can see these are just like cut at an angle to give it a little bit more of a unique look. This material here is just like a flex metal hose. I think I got it off of it was like a two-headed lamp. I only had the two hoses, so I cut them in half. They were originally twice as long as this, but you know, and then there's a lamp on the end of it, and you can point them in different directions. You know, sort of like this kind of a deal. So I cut these two hoses in half, drilled some holes, so I could jam these in there. Just add a little bit of surface detail. Everything is glued together with acetone, basically. Like I said, ABS is soluble in acetone, which means that you can just paint it straight on. It'll dissolve the surface, and now that it's like gooey, once you stick it together, once the acetone all flashes out, you're left with basically one solid piece of ABS. These pipes join on here. What another thing you can do is you can take, like, this is a bit of support material from one of the top pieces. I could take scrap ABS like this from the printer, drop them in a bucket of acetone, and it'll dissolve, and now there's just like ABS goop. And it gets really sticky, sticks to itself really well. Then I just sort of blended out the seam with some drywall compound, and it's a super strong bond. It's not going anywhere. The rest of the construction was just like leather belts cut into smaller sections. We have this big piece of leather that's just screwed in a few places. This buckle, again, another printed piece. You can see the layers, because I didn't spend time smoothing this one out. We liked the look. This was another one that I didn't actually develop this latching mechanism. There's a website called Thingiverse where people who have 3D printers print things, upload their models for free, and it's just like, here. I found a buckle mechanism that lends itself really well to being printed. Like, it doesn't have any funky overhangs, stuff that requires supports. It doesn't have to be cleaned out, and it can be used straight off the printer. So I added these 4 mount points, made it mirrored, so like this detail right here. On the other side, it's the unlatching button, but just to make it symmetrical, I put it there even though it doesn't actually do anything. And there you have it. A working, strong buckle. In terms of actually working hours, probably only a couple of days. So 8-hour days, that's like 16 hours-ish. But it ended up taking more like 3 weeks to get all of this stuff together because, you know, like the drywall compound needed time to dry. It was kind of right on the end of winter there, so there's still a lot of water in the air, and so, you know, it wasn't drying very fast. You know, same for spray paint. Spray paint does not like cold, humid weather. It just doesn't dry at all. So I had a lot of problems just like waiting for stuff to dry. It ended up being, you know, a couple weeks. Plus time spent, you know, like remodeling some of the 3D models for these parts. So it's like, if I had had everything together when I started, probably would have only taken a few days, but it ended up taking a few weeks. Last but not least, we have Simon's activator remote for the Death Ray. This, I only printed the button. That was kind of a last minute thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I need a button. So this was a really quick model to make because it's basically just a cylinder with a little dish in it, and there's a flange on the inside to keep it from popping out. But that was like a super simple model to make. So like, when I was making this, I was like, oh yeah, I need a button. And I knocked out this and sent it over to the printer. And it's a really quick print because it's kind of small. The rest of this is it's an MDF fiberboard. This is just like 3 layers of MDF. Top one has a couple of holes cut in it, one for this and one for this little switch that I had laying around. The middle one, same, you know, it's just got some access holes, and then this back one here has a pin in it to hold the spring for the button, you know, and then there's also the antenna, which is a little loose, but didn't end up being a problem. And actually, I can open this up so you can see the inside of it if you want. Alright, there's the inside. Pretty simple. You can see the layers, and there's the back of the switch. I didn't connect it to anything because it doesn't do anything, but like there's the whole button. I don't have any red material, so I printed it in the really like bright green. It was kind of the fun build. One of those ones where you just sort of scrounge around for various materials, knock out something real quick. Yeah, there's just like a nail in there as a spring guide. A couple coats of silver spray paint and good to go. I've been building stuff for... I think I started building stuff once I stopped taking stuff apart. That's what I used to do a lot, is I'd take stuff apart to find out how it worked. I think I really started making things when I was 12, 13. That would put that at 10 years ago. First I was doing little things. I did a lot of wood carving, and sort of the story of a maker is you can make more stuff as you acquire more tools. And so that this whole time just been in the process of acquiring more tools. First, you know, we have the saw, so you can cut basic wood. You start to get stuff like belt sanders for doing all your shaping, the drill press for drilling nice clean holes. You can do fine cutout work with a scroll saw, bench grinder, cutting metal, bandsaw for doing rough cut, ripping, that kind of stuff. Got my lathes here for any sort of round object. And now that I have the printer, you know, I can start to do really complex shapes that I wouldn't have been able to have done without like a whole machine shop. When you're starting out making props, and it pretty much continues for a lot of props you're going to make, and you'll see this become more apparent with the Death Ray, it's not so much about making specific pieces as actually finding bits and other pieces of stuff that you can use to make your props better. So like on the jetpack, it would have been nice if I could have found something that looked kind of like a rocket nozzle to use as rocket nozzles, but like these tubing pieces, I just had those laying around. Before I was a props guy, I just collected like random junk, lots of random junk. Back when I took stuff apart, I just had all of these pieces and I didn't want to get rid of them because you might be able to use them someday, and we finally did. This is a very tiny portion of my random junk, but you have stuff like the main circuit board out of a really, really old black and white TV. Completely doesn't work anymore, but we had this on Simon's table as he's madly inventing stuff. He's got weird stuff, you know? Brush roller from a vacuum cleaner. All sorts of stuff you can make out of that. It's old telephones. A lot of random junk. Doorbell, ringer thing. And making props is often just a process of finding new ways to stick it all together to be like, and here's what you can use. That especially works in like sci-fi genres. And for like regular everyday stories, the props that you need to make or gather are usually really simple things like books and papers and normal personal effects, so there isn't a whole lot of making that has to go on with those. It's once you get into these weird, not everyday things that you have to start thinking outside the box and building stuff.
So that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video about the props and making the props. If you guys have any questions for me or for Phillip, wanting to know more about how he makes stuff or what he likes to make or anything like that, go ahead, post them down below. If you like these videos, please like below, hit subscribe. I try and have a couple videos come out a week when I can manage it. Just doing that lets me know that you enjoy them and that I should make more. We are Rogue Zohu Productions, a production company in Washington State made up of 2 home-educated families. I'm Annie Poling, and I host these vlogs documenting our adventures. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.